Dreamers, doers, and rule breakers. People who try new things, take risks, and break the mold. Wins or stumbles, that's how the world shifts. This is How It Shifts.
Welcome to another episode of How It Shifts. My name is Tina Bieber, and today we have wonderful Lais Glück here as a guest for the topic of designing for happiness. Lais is a researcher, an experienced designer, and the founder of Glück and MindFUNness. Welcome, Lais.
Thank you, Tina. And first of all, it's a great honor to be here. I am super excited to have this conversation, to go deeper into shifting perspectives around the happiness, I guess. Yeah. And I'm already flourishing with insights since our previous talk. So yes, I'm all yours and hope to make sense, and already want to have like this tiny disclaimer that if some things that doesn't make sense for anyone, please reach me out. I will be more than happy to go deeper into some of the complex concepts that we might go through it here. So thank you so much.
Thank you for being here, Lais. I met you a couple of years ago already, right? And I met you when you were in your element as an experienced designer, but also working with people around the topic of happiness and emotions, emotional intelligence. And I was like thinking, like, not only that time, but also the other times I saw you in your element, I was like, I want what she is having. Like, no kidding. So what is that?
It's life. Yeah.
More about
It's thank you. It's so interesting that you asked me that because I've heard that before in my life, and I decided to like even look deeper into myself and see like, what is happening inside of me that inspires that in people. So like basically, I think the key ingredient, I would say, it's curiosity. So I've always been a curious human being, and as simple as it might seem, is not that simple in the way that we usually relate with the world. So we are encouraged to know stuff, to affirm stuff, like to have certainty about stuff. And I've always been very inquisitive and curious to go deeper into everything because it's fun. And I think like this combination from fun and curiosity, it's also a great association, because it's not like being curious to unmask the magician. Like it's just like being curious because curiosity is the greatest gift that we have, right? Like to discover things, to discover how does a piano sound, or like how might I swim faster, like to be curious about it and not like aiming only for performance. So I've always approached things like this in my life, anything. And that can mean like making an egg, a scrambled egg in the morning. I would try to, be curious about it. So I would refrain in this sense, like even with the multiples aspects about myself, I would say that approaching life with curiosity and fun is what makes me me. So if this inspires people, this would be my gift or my recommendation somehow. Yeah.
Well, 100%, because there's this moment of in it, right? Like you are actually like creating this moment, and it's like almost this kind of childlike playfulness and curiosity that we are kind of like unlearning over time. And I see that in Malu, my 3-year-old, you know, how she's approaching the world. And then it's like, for me, like going there is like, yeah, that's right. As you said, how does a piano sound? How does, how does that pencil do when I'm gonna
Yeah.
express it just a little more? And it's super interesting, and it's definitely like an interesting.
And connecting just one thing with what you were mentioning, for instance, having Malu as an example, like we usually frame this state of being as a childlike state of being, and I think like this is it has two perspectives, right? Like, okay, you can have a child's mind, right? We talk a lot of from, like, you can see in a lot of self-development coachings, like you hear people saying they like, right, have more a childlike mind.
Well, usually people about like heal your inner child.
Yes. Yeah, the inner child. I would say like it's just like being human. Like there's this amazing author, Huizinga. It's in one of my key readings, and he explores a lot about the universe of play. And one of the hypotheses that he shares is that like play, like fun, for instance, or it doesn't have an utility, so it's a thing on itself, just like art. So when you're being playful, like playing for real, not like competing or playing a game to win something, you're just like having fun. This is an expression of life that is like even beyond humans. So like you can see animals when they are playing, they're just playing. They're not training to be better predators or like to know how to reach a higher apple. It's just like playing for fun. So this is it's a life expression more than just like something for you to become a better human being. It's actually just for you to be a being, right? So yeah, just one thing.
Because actually, I mean, we will be talking about happiness, right? And to me, like the state of happiness is actually like feeling like a feeling of aliveness, right? So when I feel alive and good, and I always compare like entrepreneurship with like motherhood, or you're feeling like the intensity of life, like all its emotion. It's not about, oh yeah, I'm joyful and I'm all positive and no. No, but it's like really this kind of, yes, I feel alive because I'm feeling it, you know? And sometimes it hurts and sometimes it's just like overwhelming, but sometimes it's just also like, I don't know, you feel like it's like the highest right of your life or something, right? So it has like so many different facets. So we're gonna dive into that, but before that, Lais, your last name and German. Glück means luck, or you are glücklich, right? It's like it is also like it's about luck, it's about happiness. Like, what's the connection?
Yeah, it is so funny because I think this is the biggest gift that I received in my life, having such a powerful world connected to my name itself. So it's part of how I define myself in society. And my first name has also a rooted meaning from Greek that translates to the person who speaks. So it's like the person who speaks happiness. And when yeah, so when I saw that for the first time, like when I actually realized as a grown up, it seemed actually quite obvious because I've always been very joyful and active and alive. And even when I was a kid, used to hear like there were some friends that used to call me like Lais Feliz, which in Portuguese is like happy Lais. And so it was funny because it rhymes, the sound is it's cool. So that for me was just like normal. It was a part of who am I. But then when I actually realized the meaning, and even when I was working with branding and understanding the power of naming, like when you name something, you're creating an intention. You have like a semantics that is like inherent from the name itself, and will impact in the way that that thing, that brand, that something is perceived by others. I started to analyze mine. I was like, huh, this is so interesting. So what if I go deeper? What if I could actually be curious about having this surname and having this name? What would unfold? And from that, I started to, I decided actually to make Glück. the name of my company, but it shouldn't be about me. It shouldn't be about Lais. So then I was like, how might I make Glück bigger than Lais? So then I started to do the research about happiness and trying to understand better, like this universe, the science behind happiness. And from that, by associating with design, my intention was how might we make happiness tangible, or even making happiness as an ability to be practiced, which is the hypothesis that we're designed for happiness is based on. So like, yeah, approaching Glück, happiness, as an ability, as something that can actually put in action with intentionality.
I love this. Like you're going from, your being to your profession, and you have like this interaction, or the intersection between like being or bringing that to the world as an experience designer and a researcher of happiness, right? So this is this connecting part, and it's like super powerful, right? So tell us a little more about designing for happiness. Like, what is that, and where do we potentially use that? That is very interesting. Like the intersection between your being and your professions, right? And then you have like the intersection between like you are actually like an experience designer, but you are also researching happiness. So now tell us a little bit more about what that means, designing for happiness. Is there a concept or anything we can learn from?
I hope so. Yeah, no, there's definitely there's definitely a concept, but before this concept, I think it's interesting to pointing out what you mentioned about from essence to expression, right? So I feel that from my essence, by being curious about what my essence is, or like who am I, and actually, like, for fun, I think like what excites me the most is to create something new, to create stuff. This is who am I. So I don't. I wouldn't want just to follow something. I feel that for me to keep feeling the aliveness that I'm constantly feeling, I need to discover things. So when I saw the name aspect and the design field that I'm in love with, I started to think about design when I was already 10 years old. Like I knew that I would pursue the design profession, and because it was similar to an inventor. So like this sense of creating, like you're constantly connecting, navigating complexity. This is something that really excites me. So it was, what if I just combine design and happiness? What would happen? So, and then I used Glück as this space. So the purpose of Glück was to be this lab for us to test and create with real case scenarios, possibilities to combine design and happiness. So like it was during 7 years, we massively tested, explored all the possibilities, not all, but like lots of possibilities of bringing concepts from positive psychology, from philosophy, from physics, from mathematics, from like so many different areas of knowledge to see how might we bring more make happiness less abstract and less relativized, like not too relative, right? In terms of in this abstraction of what it means. And so design helps in that, right? Bring order into like this chaotic information. So after that, we now wrapped the concept of design for happiness, which is basically having these structures for us to practice happiness as an ability. And so we have designers as translators and happiness as a language. So how might we as designers translate the abstraction into practical aspects or to strategies, to intentional strategies or ways to relate with emotions that are not only avoiding or pursuing something, but intentionally combining discomforts and comforts. So like, and inside of the design for happiness concept, we have 4 pillars that are the guide for our approach. Highly existential, I would say, because we understand that the starting point of relating or of happiness by acknowledging the quality of our existence. So why? Because also the responsible ones for everything, not everything that we consume, what we create, so the materials, techniques. So my intention by bringing existential qualities to the basis, um, okay, is my internet bad for you? Okay.
I see it like this, but I don't know, Carlos. Not anymore.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Okay. I'm back.
Sorry. Oh, we have to cut out stuff.
Yeah, all good. So by bringing this existential aspect of life into the design process, we aim to help designers to be more aware, more conscious about the impacts of their creations. So the first pillar is impermanent existence, and this is like super intense because we've come from like we've heard from all past masters in design and great authors the importance of, for instance, especially in product design, to make things last. So like this is one affirmation, right? So and when you have a principle of impermanent existence, it questions even like the why should something exist forever? What should something last if desire doesn't last? So if I have a chair, for instance, that I want to use, that it should last forever, how might I as a designer think that the lasting of the desire is not the same as the lasting of the material itself? So which different solutions can I think about it? How might it change, for instance, in a product design example? So design for happiness can be applied in different areas of design. This is the way that we thought about it. So this is the first pillar. The second pillar is the relational being. So from awareness of impermanent existence, I am aware that the way that people exist is relational. So the idea of me, the idea of my existence relies on your existence. So and basically in our relation. So the idea of me only exists because you exist, because you recognize, you see things about me that makes the idea of me. So again, like this is not nothing new in terms of, especially in philosophy, even in religions, we hear things similar. But like again, I'm bringing this concept into a design process, right? So I understand the impermanence in the quality of existence, the impact of relations, and the way that like we only exist in relation to something. And the third pillar is the systemic creativity, which is instead of you creating for someone, towards a user, you create for entire system. So everything you're creating should aim to integrate the system and the way that you're thinking, in the way that you're designing. But when we are talking about system, we are not only talking about stakeholders. We are talking, for instance, culture. So if I want to, if I aim to design for emotions, which is the fourth pillar, emotional intentionality. So before we talk about emotions, I first need to be aware that the culture where this person comes from, the language that this person speaks, for instance, will frame the way that that person feels. So like I only recognize some specific emotion because I do have a background, or I do have a word to express that. So my cultural system, the society plays a role in my design, or in the way that I'm related to something, in the way that I understand my existence. So those are the three first pillars: impermanent existence, relational being, and systemic creativity. So then you can go to the fourth, which is emotional intentionality, which is the key frame from our research that involves the wave model, right? So the wave model is not a frame, but like a diagram where you can combine discomfort and comfort to understand how emotions flow through a specific time frame. And you can have either a way to map emotions, but also to design for emotions. So what changes in design for happiness approach comparing to different design approach that involves emotions is that we acknowledge discomforts, we integrate pain and friction into the process. And before we talk about emotions, we first acknowledge the impermanence, the importance of relations, and the systems in the center, not the user on itself. And that changes a lot about the way that we relate with the idea of happiness. And here we talk about like the ability of happiness. So connecting the dots here, basically, when we talk about designers as translators and happiness as a language, basically our role as designer for happiness is to translate the complexity of emotions and these abstractions that are part of who we are as a society, as humans, into a language. And this language is this emotional heartbeat, which is you can use the wave model for that as well.
Well, we will tag your article also later, right? So people can like look at the wave model and put it into practice, which would be amazing. There's a couple of questions I'm having because this is very fascinating, and there's like one in particular, like if we think about UX design, right? Like you practically said, no, let's not design for the user. Let's not design for this human being there, right? And now we're in a world, I mean, I'm coming out of the organization design space, right? It's like we have human-centered approaches, like human-centered design and everything. And you're now saying, no.
Yeah, so if you are a designer right now listening to us, please don't leave. Hold our hand, trust us. Let me guide you through this talk.
Please, can you give us like a practical example what that means in UX design?
Okay, so So first, when we talk about not putting the user in the center, is like acknowledging that the user is part of the system. So we are not extracting the user, right? But we are not approaching the user as a consumer, as a client, or something to be pleased or to solve all the user needs. So and this is inspired in post-anthropocentric design, which is already another field of research that I'm a big fan. And I think, again, it encourages designers to be more responsible for their designs and the impact and the way that people relate to objects, to interactions. So when we talk about user experience, one very a big impact of this way of thinking in the user experience approach is that we don't aim, for instance, to create frictionless interactions. This is one example. So there are some principles in the UX design universe that aims to have like the easiest, the most optimized solutions, everything that makes the user's life easier. Why is that? Because this is valuable. People pay more for that. And like this is basic capitalism. Like we know about that. But like what are the consequences from that, right? The consequences that we are seeing now is even the decrease of cognitive abilities in people. They are so accommodated into easiness, into everything that is optimized. Again, it's important that there are some needs, there are some problems, some issues that you do need to solve. It's not the point, but it's like, what if you could aim to bring friction inside of the design process? So what if you intentionally create blocker or a barrier, like the right amount of tension that encourages the user to be more aware of them as part of a system and not only as a,
right?
exactly. Then you engage the user more. You have them, you create agency, right? Like the person is not only consuming, not only being pleased, but actually engaging in something as an agent, as part of the system. So like bringing pain, bringing friction, in the right amount. That's why we need to have so much ability in the not only ability but the responsibility of our abilities in creating and designing things for people will impact the way they're developing, evolving, or even behaving as humans.
But this is kind of like, it makes so much sense, and at the same time it's like a mind blow, because again, example of parenting, right? I'm like trying to have Malu flow through life in a way, you know, like everything easy, but at the same time, obviously, I'm taking then the growth possibility away from her. So for me, it's like this constant kind of, okay, there's a fine line, I'm aware, but what am I doing? Like, when am I overstepping this line and I'm kind of like pampering her too much, and then I'm actually because we all grew up with different kind of challenges, right? But now we're looking into, okay, we have like endless opportunities. I mean, in the city of Amsterdam, endless opportunities of schools, right?
Yeah.
When I think back in my village, there was one school, one primary school everybody would go to, like there was just like not this choice of diversity, right? And here we're like thinking, okay, is this like the best school? Is that really like, meeting her needs? And then I'm thinking, okay, are we overdoing it? Because then we are also, if we take too much friction away, are we also then creating disconnection of a system we are part of and the possibility of learning? And I remember I had this conversation with Andy Sonntag, from Kaospilot. And we talked about education because he lives in like a self-sustaining community in Denmark. And they have their own kind of educational system, right? And I was like, this is so interesting. And he's like, yeah, because we can offer the best for our children. And I love this idea. And at the same time, I challenged it because I was like, are we overdoing it? And is that actually going to be counteracting to a certain extent? So we had like almost an argument about it at some point. It's just exploring and discovering it together. And at the end of the day, we only know when the kids are grown up and they will be fine. And I know, but it's so interesting that you say that, because you talk about discomfort and comfort, right? And I'm like, I'm waving the cards here because we're also the founder of the MindFUNness card and MindFUNness, right? And you work with that intentionally in, they stand for something else, right? Action and feeling. But the point is this idea that discomfort and comfort and that emotions come in pairs. And I think this is completely underrated, even more so that we live in a society trying to numb what people call negative emotions.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's also how we look at emotions, right? It's like they're our guiding kind of system. They're not, there is no negative and positive at the end of the day. However, discomfort and comfort. So can you just give us one example how you're also integrating that into the process so we can just make it a little more tangible?
Yeah, okay. Oh, you opened so many tabs in my mind right now, your reflections. It was like, it was amazing. So I just need to first acknowledge that the example that you gave is so powerful. parenting. Like there's no recipe for that, right? I'm not a mom yet. I aim to become one, and I admire so much my friends that are, and I see the transformation in the moms, not only in the kid. Like how the way that a woman evolves, and it's beautiful. It's That's for me the definition of flourishing. To become a mom is definitely flourishing. Like suddenly your life gains a totally different purpose. And from that, even the amount of discomfort that you are willing to take, or even to take from your kid, you're different, because like your sense, your levels of purpose, what gives you pulse is different. So in the wave model, we have two extremes. In the article, you can check the anatomy of the wave. So we have the valley on the wave that we call the pulse. So the wave, differently from other, it's a reframing in the way that we approach discomfort and comfort, because I actually place the comfort zone in what should be the negative if we approach as a Cartesian diagram, right? So the comfort
zone.
Yeah, so you have this, you have the baseline. So below the baseline, you will find the comfort. So it's like relaxing. So when after you relax, you allow yourself to find what gives you pulse. So what gives you pulse, it creates energy. And from this energy, you would go up until like this area of discomfort, of tension. And that doesn't mean it's not bad. That's why it's even in the upper part. So you have like the highest part of the wave is the highest amount of discomfort that you're willing to take in that specific relation of pairs, the pulse and the opportunity for transformation. So this intentionality, right, like the amplitude of your wave is related to how strong your pulse is. So when you become a mom, your pulse shifts, right? Like what is pulsing, what's giving you energy, it's totally different. So probably the amount of discomfort that you're willing to take will in the proportionally increase as well. So this is a way of translating, for instance, a living experience. My second tab. Okay, you want to mention something?
Only commenting on that because I read the other day about what like parenthood is like. You are triggered to the max. You are feeling like really like a lot of emotions, but you are kind of like pushed to still act out of love towards your child. Because obviously, and that this contrast, you have to deal with kind of like this polarity, which is in the bigger system, is what we need to actually deal with in all these systems, right? Look at politics, look at nature, look at all these different kind of cultures, and nobody really knows how to. So then it goes back to the topic of intention.
Yes, which is like, for me, I use the intention, like the inner tension, to understand how the tensions inside of yourself, how they're impacting in your energy levels. So like how you approach life based on this inner tensions and yourself. So when again, commenting on the comment, it's so nice because the pulse of love, the energy in love, it's insane. And so like the intention of, again, designers as translators and happiness as a language, it's actually to make it visible, this proportionality, for instance, so we can have better questions. So maybe by we being able to understand, to read how our emotions are pulsing, are evolving through time, we can even see like, wow, okay, that week was super hard, that this was happening, but I was pulsing. I was in my zone. Like I was, as a mom, like I knew what I was up to. Like I was capable of doing. David Siegel has this concept of window of tolerance, right? So in the wave model, we combine this same principle, which are the linears, the limits of the zones. So inside of the anatomy of the wave model, we have what we call the vital zone and the critical zones. So inside of the vital zone, you will find transformation, but you can also find flow. So sometimes you don't need to to transform yourself all the time. You don't need to be better and better. Like sometimes you just need to flow.
Exactly.
And even for you to flow, it's not easy. That's why you need to understand where's your baseline at the moment. Are you vibing only in critical zones? Are you burning? Or maybe are you in the void, like lacking of purpose, lacking of things that are giving you the pulse to go into this alternation, and then you will find yourself in your vital zone.
And that's what I mean also with like, you are describing the journey of any, I think, founder of an organization or any entrepreneur or leader, right? So it's like, that's why I always compare like motherhood or parenthood with entrepreneurship, because I think it's like emotionally you go through like the same kind of roller coaster, but with this intention of, I want this and I want to feel this feeling of aliveness. And this is why I'm there for it. This is my intention. And this is why I cope with this better. Like, it's like this week, like a lot is happening, running the startup or building the startup, then motherhood, but all feels like there's like momentum, there's flow. And I haven't slept in a while. It feels like it. My those are bad nights, I'm having bad nights, but at the same time, it's like what you say, like you feel it. You feel the pulse, you feel the purpose. So it keeps you going in a very positive energy, actually. And I don't want to talk about positive, negative, but it feels like it, even though you're facing also, not the greatest stuff some days, right?
Yeah.
You deal with it differently and you respond to it differently.
Again, this is a clear example of the window of tolerance. Once Malu was born, and then even like during the pregnancy itself, right? It starts to build in you more resilience. So you are more resilient as a woman. So when this high discomfortable situations happens, they don't impact you as much as before because you're way more resilient. From what? Out of love. Because like from love, it's so powerful, so strong that makes you even stronger to enable you to care about this other person. So like it's beautiful, right? Like when you understand, you see the relations of both, what gives you pulse in order for you to achieve or like to overcome high discomforts and then transform yourself. But again, not every time you should aim for transformation. And even if you transform yourself, like if you go to the zone of evolve, is what we call it's above I blank, like the flow zone. Yeah, you have the flow, then you have the evolve. So above the evolve, you have the burn, right? So you need to understand it. Once you reach these more tense areas, you should aim to reset, to recharge yourself. So you need to aim for proportionality, which is I think especially for entrepreneurs, for founders, it's easier for you to put yourself into this discomfort zone because it's encouraged. Like a lot of people encourage you for that. Like you should aim, you need to go out of the box, put yourself into the discomfort zone. Yeah, we heard that. But like, how intentional are you to comfort? And comfort not as an indulgence. I'm not talking about here like eating chocolate, drinking, or like going into a spa. It's like understanding what gives you energy. So like, for instance, I am I'm a very outgoing person. I love to be with amazing human beings, having amazing conversation like this one. I know that after this recording, I will leave so much alive. Like, because this gives me energy, because I know myself and I know that this nourishes my energy levels. So how might I plan my days, my routines? Like I have a bunch of stuff to do for the companies. We were talking about that. We have like a lot of projects going on, but I know that this conversation, it's not only interesting about the conversation itself, but it's something that for me as Lais, as a human being, creates energy. It's comforting for me to have this type of exchange. So I can then place moments for this to happen more in my week, during my week, because I know they are fundamental for me to have what it takes to pulse back to the discomforts that I am choosing to pursue. So again, the intentionality is from from this inner aspect to the outer aspect, right? Like I understand that I allow myself to put in more tense situations. Again, that's why they're more discomfortable. They're not negative. There are negative things in life. We need to acknowledge that. So the wave model, it doesn't respond to everything, right? So there are different discomforts like opportunities, accidents, things that we are not choosing, but we are impacted by. So like you can choose how might you be affected by something that is external to you, and from that map and understand that in a wave, in the relations of comforts and discomforts. But as a designer, as someone that is designing, for instance, going back to UX design, and we can place discomforts and comforts. So again, as an UX designer or even as an experienced designer, like just an important point, like the difference between UX designer and experienced designer, they are quite similar, but especially at Kaospilot, we talk a lot about meaning. So when you're designing for meaning in an experience, you aim for people to feel something. You must have the ability to place moments of friction and comfort in a way that will help people flourish, grow, relationships to flourish, like help people to be at their element, to grow from that. So, but and when we connect with growth, which was the second tab that was open in my head while you were talking about Malu, the why of stress, right? Like the discomforts that we experience in order to grow. This is a biological aspect of life called hormesis. So hormesis is a biological quality of a cell to adapt itself when in an environment of stress. So like there's this right amount of stress, the same as the window of tolerance that I was mentioning prior. So the right amount of stress allows you to adapt and grow from that. This is a biological, organic aspect of life, of a cell. So again, going sports or training, if you want to build muscle, you need to break the muscle fibers. So you need to stress your muscle in order to grow. But again, there's the right amount of stress. If you go beyond that amount, you can hurt yourself.
Yeah.
So how responsible are you for the amount of discomfort and comfort that you take? Because even after you stress, you need to what? You need to rest. Rest is as important as the stress. So again, as a designer for happiness, when you're combining, when you're fluent in articulating discomfort and comfort in your design, either an experience, a product, whatever, you're way more capable of integrating with proportionality and responsibility the alternation of discomforts and comforts in order to enable growth.
Yeah. So now give us one project example where you intentionally designed for friction.
I must mention the cards that you were holding. Come on, like we have here the physical. So this is a prototype from the MindFUN cards, right? Like this is we adapt the MindFUN cards for an experience that I had the amazing honor to run with Tina in Istanbul. So it was really amazing. And so these cards, they come from this project called MindFUN Cards. So the MindFUN Cards is a card deck, and it could be like a game, it could be like an oracle, but basically it was our way to help people to practice happiness. So we designed these cards. They are divided by the happiness hormone. So you have cards towards dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins. Each card, they have reflection, an action, like they have triggers for you to that has the intention to stimulate these neurotransmitters or neuromodulators. So the cards are that. But instead of you only taking or picking a card, we designed a friction. So when you take the card, I don't know, do you have a card with you, right?
Yes, I do have a card here. Just
This is from the Love Not Fear card deck, right? So
can you
yeah, for those that are seeing the video, so we have it's a bit
and say
it's
to
white. Yeah, it's too white. But with the lens you can see. Yeah, so when you
and see. Yeah, here you see like it's two colors and you cannot really read what's written. But if you put the lens on it,
it reveals a reflection or an action. So the cool thing is that when you if you just randomly take the card, you cannot read it. It's designed for you not to be able to read the information. So again, this is the friction. So it's not, I'm not doing something that will hurt you, make you feel pain. It's just the right amount of friction for you to be aware. And from that,
creating engagement, right?
Yes. Yeah. Now you are owning your experience because you need to make a decision. Do you want to feel or to act? So by choosing the blue lenses, you will reveal a reflection. And by choosing the red lenses, you would reveal an invitation for an action, for something that you need to make. Sometimes some cards, they invite you to go out for a run. Some cards, they even invite you to scream. Another one can invite you to give someone a hug or to draw something. And the reflections will lead you to, they can be conversation starters. They're like different natures of reflections itself. So it can be a reflection with yourself or with another person. But that's the thing. You own your experience when you have friction because you own your pain. You own your discomfort. So imagine yourself after you see someone picking a card that invites you to scream. You will think 1,000 times more if you want to pick a card or not. So that's the thing, because that made you feel like you're feeling like, do I actually want to scream? Imagine if that made that person start to scream. I don't want that, for instance, right? So this is an example of how might we apply friction as a strategic aspect of design to bring awareness, inspire agency, and make people and invite people to own their own experiences.
I love this. I mean, like also obviously very relevant for UX designers because they want to create engagement. They want to, like create lasting experiences as well to get people into a product or, like keeping them in there. And on the other hand, like for cultural, organizational or system transformation, this is super interesting, right? Because if we are able to make people part of the problem, like to understand the problem, being aware of the problem, they very likely will also be able to solve the problem, right? And that is, I mean, these are principles of also like organizations I have seen transforming to an extent where like they were so adaptive and resilient at the end of the day, which is obviously also needed for like the world we live in currently, and where this podcast is rooted in, right? Like how are we creating a future where we want to be part of? And so I think this is so relevant and like an amazing kind of perspective to say, okay, guys, this is how we are changing culture. This is how we are changing perspectives in individuals. And this is also how we are actually we're not designing for users, but having the system lens on to understand the interdependency of the person in the system and how we can create something that is adaptive and maybe not lasting. And this is also really nice because it also gives a very different perspective of reinventing things. But with also what we have there, we don't always have to create the new thing. I mean, obviously, you said that's what drives you, right?
Yeah.
But so acknowledge, but you acknowledge there is a system I'm part of. So it needs to make sense, and that's my intention in it. This is why I'm going in there to design for meaning. So I love this. I love this, Lais. And we're about to wrap up. So I'm asking you, is there anything else you would like to bring to our audience and say, guys, this is what's needed, that it's shifting?
Who am I to say what it's needed, what's not, right? But I loved that you remember what I mentioned at the beginning about my inner driver, right? Like, I'm aware that I'm driven by curiosity and fun. So this is who am I? And I feel that nowadays we've been seeing so much content or influencers affirming that people should be the creators, the owners, the trailblazers of everything. And I think it's amazing to inspire people on that. But again, I would say, like, for what? For whom? Is that a rule for everybody? So again, connecting with intentionality and the way that we create things. I always like to think first about from essence to expression. Like, what is your zone? And without the need of external appraisal that, like, everybody should, like, again, you're part of a system. So as part of the system, how you're contributing for the system to exist, to evolve, to move. And that's why we bring again impermanence, right? Like, impermanent existence, relational being, systemic creativity, and then emotional intentionality. So everything starts from impermanence. And I think this is a beautiful gift to give for people, to be aware that, yeah, we are limited. And this is amazing, because by being as a system, we are limitless, right? As an individual, yeah, we have a specific time here in life. How are we playing with that? What if we play more with the time that we have here instead of performing more, right? So by being playful, by being curious, I feel that we will have stronger pulses to then add more energy into the transformations that we aim to create. So taking life lighter, in a easier, more like to really enjoy the unknowns, the things that we are not aware of, is the first step for you to create and approach the shifts in life that you aim to pursue. So, and this is really interesting, right? Because I really liked when you invited me. I love the title, How It Shifts. And usually, like, I see that people could reflect more on for what to shift. And from that, we are way more intentional in the shifts that we aim to create, because it's quite easy for you to think, like, every time you want to create something different, right? Like, again, I mentioned, this is my passion. I love that. But by loving that, I need to own that. And by owning that, I need to be responsible. So I cannot be just without restraints, shifting and creating and affirming things. I am responsible and grateful for the ones that came prior to me. So how might I respect those that came before, honor the pursuit, the research, the knowledge that was built prior to me through the time and life expression that I have with me. So I think this is like being more, you can be kinder to yourself, you're kinder to the time that you have, and then you release the tension and you can finally enjoy the process of shifting, because shifting is highly discomfortable. And for you to find comfort in the shift, from my perspective, you need to be able to play with that. Yeah, that would be all.
I love that, Lais. And also what I get from you every time is, let's ask more what if questions,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So like this, I would like to wrap this up. It was such an honor talking to you, Lais. As always, huge inspiration. Thank you so much for your perspectives and the work you're doing to make this shift happen. And yeah, with that, one shift at a time. Let's keep shifting.
Yes.
And thank you so much.
Thank you one more time. And again, I'm here as a human, as a person, to anyone that wants to keep dialoguing. If there was anything that made you curious about it, I would love to hear more.
Nice. Thank you. All right.